Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Delighted to spend time with Brian Gordon, and he is with a company it's called Mega LTC, and they are in the long-term care business. And let me tell you, if you're not familiar with long-term care insurance, I say shame on you, because you're literally deferring your security, your safety, your well-being to the government, and you're creating a vow of poverty for your future in order to do so. I'm a huge fan of LTC. I've been one long before LTC was even cool, but it's more timely now than ever. And so I'm delighted to have someone on who could talk about this important topic. Brian, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kevin.
Tell us a little bit about Mega LTC.
MAGA has been around specializing in long-term care planning for over the past 40 years. My father started the company in 1975, and I joined him about a little over 25 years ago. And we try to help families kind of figure out the best solution to pay for this type of expense for themselves.
And let me ask, are you licensed in Texas?
Yes, we are.
What states are you licensed in, or how many states are you licensed in?
We are licensed in about 42 states, I believe, right now. We work with financial advisors from coast to coast, assisting their clients to better understand the subject and also to be able to work with a specialist that works with many different carriers.
Awesome. Talk a little bit about the importance of long-term care.
Well,
and really what it does. Talk a little bit about what it does.
Sure. What long-term care basically does is it picks up from where our health insurance and our Medicare supplements would leave off, because typically if we should need services due to a hip replacement, knee replacement, something that we're going to all recover from typically, that is what our health insurance and Medicare do a very nice job of getting us back on our feet again. The big concern that people have is if someone should develop dementia, if somebody should just come to the point of life where they can no longer take care of themselves and live independently, to be able to do that can be very, very expensive for that person, depending on the part of the country that they live in for themselves. And we talk a lot about what the consequences of not having a plan are, and we know that insurance is one way to protect someone's assets and protect their family and a lifestyle that they're accustomed to, but we also know that there are people that can self-fund it. And the key with those folks is to make sure that those families know where those assets are to help pay for the care.
Yeah, absolutely. And people literally don't understand the alternatives. What are the alternatives? The alternatives are if you don't have long-term care and if you don't have largesse, and we're talking largesse, often depending on what kind of facilities you want, thousands, if not tens of thousands a month, depending on what your expectations are. If you don't have that largesse accumulated, you're going to be either paying for it yourself, or you're going to have to literally transfer your wealth to another family member in order to be impoverished enough for government to pay for it, and then your options become dramatically limited. That's a pretty accurate assessment, isn't it?
Right. You give up a little bit of control when you have to go on to Medicaid, and just so that some people know that there are people that are closer to those levels, and that is the appropriate type of planning is to spend down those assets and to go on to Medicaid. And what we always tell people is to find a good facility in your area to start with, so that if you do spend down your assets, that at least you can typically stay in that facility and not have to move out of there.
Right, exactly. It should be done as a form of planning, not a form of reaction.
Right. And a lot of people don't realize what the issue is if they're relying on their family, their children, their spouses. There's a lot of consequences that come with that as well. As you've got kids who are probably working. Double income families today are very common. People are waiting to have kids a little bit longer as well. And so they lose time with their family, they lose time with their savings, they lose time to put away money for retirement. So it doesn't just affect that person needing care, it usually affects the people that are helping take care of them.
Yeah. Talk a little bit, and that's exactly right. There's this phenomenon that I've been talking about on the radio. My show is the longest-running business show in Houston. I've been on radio in Houston for a quarter of a century. You couldn't tell by looking at me, though. But, the reality is that there's this phenomenon called the sandwich generation. And those are people who are, a lot of them my age, who still have younger children, but also have parents that they are taking care of. And I tell you right now, if you're, as someone who's into sandwich, And you know how hard it is to take care of both your parents because they didn't fully plan for this kind of phenomenon of needing so much care and taking care of your kids. I don't think you want to transfer that same kind of responsibility to your own children. To me, that's a very compelling argument to look at long-term care.
Right. Well, I used to call myself the sandwich generation with the slice of lettuce because I have my 3 kids, I have my parents, and my grandmother is still living at age 98. So when my parents travel, I become the one that has to make sure she's taken care of as well. I also heard somebody coin that as the club sandwich generation now. So it is something that is very concerning because, families, again, also are not only do you have the dynamics of multiple generations we're worrying about, but you also have to worry about some of the kids as they get older. That families are more spread out today also.
Mm-hmm. No question about it. No question about it. Talk a little bit about cost involved. Obviously, it's all predicated on how many years you have to pay it. It's like anything else. You're essentially buying some coverage, and I'm assuming, like a lot of the companies out there, you can pay for it all at once if you wanted to. But really, the affordability is based on the number of years that you have appear to have to be able to pay it.
Right. Well, the key is today is that there are a lot of choices that people do have when they're buying long-term care today. Even though we have a lot less companies offering coverage than we used to, we still have some good options. You've got the traditional plans where you typically are paying an annual premium every year, and you're usually choosing anywhere from a 3-year to a 5 or 6 year benefit period. You choose how much money you want to have per day to work with. Now, what people don't realize is a lot of folks tend to try to overinsure that area. They think if the cost of care in their area is, let's say, $8,000 a month, they've got to buy a policy that covers them for $8,000 a month in care. And the reality is that people still have assets that they can tap into to help cover some of those expenses. So we look at the insurance more today as more of a hedge because it is something that people are putting more in their financial plans, and people are a little bit more aware of this topic. And so they're trying to do that. And when you look at what the cost is on an average annual cost, you're looking at over $90,000 a year is what someone can expect to pay. And that's for a facility type of care. And if someone were to need, let's say, home health care and a home health aid for about 44 hours a week, it's the average is about $46,000 a year. And it kind of goes up from there, I see.
Yeah. Absolutely. Talk a little bit about, what attitudes are towards this. I mean, long-term care has been around for quite a while now, but it really didn't even begin to get traction until the last 20 years, really the last decade. Where would you say people are at now? The awareness level, the acceptability level, that type of thing?
Well, as we all know, as we age, our conversations change drastically at the dinner table with our friends. And so I'm at the point now where I'm having these conversations with a lot of our friends, and the idea and concerns that a lot of people have is that, where are these premiums going to be when they're in their 80s or 90s? So that's why today, you have, like I said, you have the traditional plans, but we also have the asset-based policies that people are really, really looking at today. That's actually been a large area of our growth today, has been the asset-based or hybrid policies, where it's a combination of life insurance with long-term care riders attached to it. And the attractive part of those policies are not the life insurance benefits. The attractive part of those plans are definitely the long-term care, because it gives folks a lot of guarantees. It gives them some very solid benefits. And in many cases, those policies are going to be paid up. They can pay it on a single-pay basis. They can do a 10-pay. They can do a 20-pay. There's even one carrier that's out there that you can do just, pay an annual payment for the rest of your life, basically, and that folks will know that those premiums that they're paying are going to be 100% guaranteed with most of the carriers out there.
Brian, I appreciate your time today. Brian Gordon, he is with MAGA LTC. That's MAGA Long-Term Care. You can find him online at magaltc.com, magaltc.com. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Do you want to remind the listener, best content here shows up over there at usdailyreview.com. While they're liking on Facebook, follow it on Twitter. And this is The Price of Business.